Hi, this is Donna, the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife Artist. I'm going to read my journal from Melafon today. Melafon being the extraterrestrial that I met in a remote viewing session about a week ago. It was a blind remote viewing session where we were asked to connect with the being at the Virginia, Brazil UFO crash in 1996. And of course, we didn't know who we were connecting with until afterwards. And it turned out to be this being who called himself Melafon and told me that he would help teach me, like school, if I would connect with him every morning and write down what he said. So we've been writing this for about a week. It's not a huge journal, so it doesn't take that long to fill up a page, but it's still a good amount. And today I watched the documentary about this incident called Moment of Contact on YouTube. And it was hard to watch it because now I feel like I know this being, and he's a beautiful being. And so it's hard, to watch that and put myself in his shoes about, how terrifying that must have been, and on so many levels, like more levels than I can comprehend. So that's what I was thinking about today. So I didn't do my normal routine of connecting with him first thing in the morning. Instead watched that documentary. So let me read. I was just telling him how I watched it, and was telling him how I empathized. So he said, hopefully you see that even though that part of my story was scary and sad, it also wasn't the end of my story. I'm still here, and what happened back then in 1996 was important. We changed a lot of lives and pushed knowledge about ETs forward by a lot. There were so many credible witnesses. We are still affecting your planet's history because of this. Wouldn't you want to have that kind of impact come from your own life? Yes, of course. Who wouldn't, right? So I said, this is me in a light blue. I was wondering, are you my guide because you are an aspect of me? Now, see, this is a concept I recently was hearing from Robert Monroe's research from the Monroe Institute when he first learned that some of his spirit guides were actually just aspects of himself. And I guess he had never encountered that idea. So I asked Melafon if he's my guide that way because he's an aspect of me. And he says, yes, we do share a connection. I look familiar to you, which is true. He does seem familiar to me. I don't know from where, because I was not aware of this story really until recently. I had heard of it, but didn't know anything else about it. So, yes, I look familiar to you. We feel very connected, and he said not to take that lightly and to trust your senses. Trust, I guess, my psychic senses that are telling me we have all this connection. So then I said, are you literally me? Like how Robert Monroe said his guides were all really him. And Melafon says yes. And then I kept on going. And I said, I feel resistance. Like, I know this is possible. And obviously, it makes sense. The concept makes sense to me. But still, I would hesitate to trust this answer. Can you help me? So Melafon says, why do you reject the answer? Ask yourself. This is an example of shadow work. Melafon is basically making me do shadow work while I'm journaling, which is the same thing that my Chris in spirit always helps me do. We have these conversations all the time. My other guides do as well. So here's my answer. Maybe it's too crazy. These are reasons why I might reject the answer that Melafon is actually an aspect of me. So I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, maybe this answer is too crazy. Like, maybe others have this experience, but I never have. You know how that is? Even though we were both on the earth at the same time, I'm asking, is it possible that we could be aspects of each other even though we were both on the earth at part of the same time? Because 1996, I was 25 in 1996. I guess, yes, it's possible because look at me and Chris, my twin flame in spirit. Chris is my mirror soul, and we were on Earth for 50 years together is what we had, because I was 2 years younger than him, and he transitioned at 52. So we had 50 years together. I was 50 when he transitioned. So then Melafon answers, maybe you think it's too impossible that you just heard the concept from, Robert Monroe, like I was talking about. And then here I am. But every time you follow your psychic senses and take steps on your spiritual path, something big opens up for you. That's the reward. You met me in remote viewing class. Learning remote viewing opened up your life physically and spiritually. Why not trust? Why not just believe what I said? Can't read my own writing. Then I said, okay, can I ask for some kind of confirmation of this to come to me? And he says, yes, it will come. Just be open. And he emphasized the word open. And then I realized the word open is related to the trip I went on with Chris Bledsoe and my friends in December when we filmed a green orb. And Chris specifically got an image of the orb with codes on the side of it. And I actually saw these codes coming down on us in a precognitive vision before the trip, given to me by the goddess, who Chris Bledsoe calls the lady. So I saw this orb with green codes on it before we went on the trip. And the trip was my idea. And I realized after I had the idea that it really wasn't me. It was the goddess, the lady. The goddess is who awakened me in 2015. But it's the same entity that Chris Bledsoe talks about as the lady. That's one of the ways I was opened up with my remote viewing class. Just like Melafon is talking about. I had crazy experiences last year because of this class. Because I followed my psychic nudge when Chris showed me this teacher that I needed to study with. And I knew it. And then I went and I did it. Then I was rewarded being opened up spiritually, and even in my physical life, I got to do things I've never done and travel to places I've never been, and I started to see orbs and communicate with them as well. It was remarkable, and that's what he's referring to. Okay, so he's saying, why can't you trust that you and I might be aspects of each other when you already know that you met me during a remote viewing class, and it's the same class that opened you up to all that other stuff that you got last year. So he's right about that. So then he says, just be open, okay? And that's what leads me into that trip with Chris Bledsoe and my friends to look at orbs in December of 2025 during the State of the World Forum when we filmed the green orb with codes on it. So I said, open was a word that was repeated over and over in the channeled message that I got from the goddess before the orb trip in December. She did repeat the word open many times. And one of my friends on the trip, who is very psychic, says that the codes on the side of the orb that we were all trying to decipher actually says open. He says it's a version of the word open, and some of the words are flipped, I think, because it doesn't quite look like that, but it kind of does. So the word open being underlined by Melafon back here is relevant. It has come up before, is what I'm saying. The goddess gave me a channeling with that word, and she asked us that we're going on this trip to see these orbs to be open and to openly receive the information and the high vibrational, just basically unconditional love energy that the orbs were going to give us, and to spread that to everyone when we went home to our respective places on the planet. And that was one of the reasons why this trip was supposed to happen. So then Melafon answers me by saying, yeah, well, follow your nose. You know, basically making a joke from that. It was a commercial in the 70s. Was it Fruit Loops or something, where the toucan would sniff out the Fruit Loops? I don't know. Anyway, basically he's saying, yeah, follow the breadcrumbs. I just gave you some clue. You said you wanted some confirmation that we are connected to each other. And I said the word open and emphasized it. And you realized that that's what the goddess said to you in December, a couple months ago, when you went on this trip. That was profound in so many ways. I haven't even gotten into how profound it was. So anyway, this session with Melafon was really about me and Melafon. Me, and his name starts with M-E, so it's like me and me. Me and my alien self. So I don't know about this. You know, I'm not saying that I'm buying it. I have a lot of skepticism, which is weird because I'm so open-minded. But yet, sometimes I have a hard time, like, just like everybody else. I'm like, well, that's a bridge too far, I want to be sure about big statements like that before I say them, before I go, hey, you guys, an aspect of me is the ET that was captured at Varania. Oh, God. People are going to be like, oh, okay, so you're totally crazy. I thought you were sort of crazy, but you know what I mean? You want to be accurate about that. And I'm not even saying I care about what other people think. I don't have to tell anybody. I don't know whether I'll make these videos public or not. But the point is, if I'm going to go on the basis of this information forward in my life, I'm going to want to know for sure that it's real. So I did ask him for a confirmation of this in some way, and he said I will get it the same way I get confirmation of everything else from the goddess or from Chris in spirit. Just this, the same kind of guide communication, non-physical communication. Okay, thanks. See you later.